Hello everyone, I'm Baruji Design, and in today's video we are going to learn Figma Auto Layout in 2026. So in this video we are going to start with a wireframe and then all the way have our screenshot recreated. If we go take a look at the layer panel, you see that we have an image, and only from the image we recreate everything here from Auto Layout, and as you can see everything is Auto Layout on the right hand side. So if you want to see how we recreate everything all the way from wireframe screenshot to Auto Layout, stay tuned. So if we jump right into it, I do have a screenshot on my screen, and as you can see, there are a lot of elements in the simple My Balance page. And the way you break things down if you want to really learn auto layout is by grouping them. You can start with a basic gray rectangle. So if I go to the rectangle mode in Figma, the way I break it down is we have one text element here, and then I would duplicate this. We have another text element here, and we have two text elements on the right side, and then we have basically another element here. So by looking at it, you can tell we need at least 3 auto layouts. And the way you would break it down is you would have 2 auto layouts on the right side. So you would have this element, and then you have 2 auto layouts here. That's your second auto layout, and then you have your basically circle auto layout, which is your third auto layout. However, once you group all of these and create 3 auto layouts, you need to add a secondary auto layout, which is called the parent auto layout, and you use that to wrap everything around it. So if I basically draw an invisible box, you would see this invisible box is a container that holds all of these. So that is your basically final and parent auto layout. Even though this might look like a very simple layout, it actually consists of 4 auto layouts. And guess what? Once you have all of this in your one auto layout, you need another auto layout to wrap everything. So that would be again your parent of the parent auto layout. So that would be again your parent container, which is an auto layout that is wrapping all these child elements, and these child elements have a parent nested auto layout that have these auto layouts inside of them. So if we also break this down further, we have our buttons at the bottom. So these buttons would have their own parent auto layout. So that is one auto layout on its own. And of course the buttons, these would have their own auto layout. So this would be the text, and then the text would have an auto layout around it. So that would basically be one element in the auto layout, and this would be your other element. You have another auto layout container at the bottom, and each of these would have their own auto layout icon. And then finally, you would have your title here, which is a auto layout, and you need to wrap that in another auto layout too. So you can copy this, expand this to be another auto layout. So this basically wraps everything. So we can also repeat these as well. And then if we go to the top, we have another auto layout here. We have 2 elements at the top. So these would be auto layout elements as well. So you would wrap these 2 in one auto layout, and then you would align them to the bottom right. So here we have another one that would wrap everything, and you can have again another auto layout here at the top with the back icon, and then you have another auto layout that wraps them. Since there is a divider between these 2, you would need to wrap another auto layout basically like this and add a border bottom to all of this. And then finally you have your parent auto layout that wraps everything. And this is how we break it down. If we really want to break it down in terms of auto layout, as you can see, we have 1, 2, and then 3 levels of layered auto layout. If we take a closer look at these elements, we actually have 4 nested layers of auto layout elements to be able to build these. So we can start by adding some text here and use the eyedropper tool to basically try to recreate this as we go. So I can group these on the right side. So we have everything in one group, so we can always refer back to, and then we have our image here. We can start with the simple ones, like creating 2 buttons is fairly simple. So we can start with these 2, and then it is pretty easy. You would just add your text, and then you would Shift+A, create your auto layout. So that would be your button, and then you would drag this to create your other button. And then again, you see both of these are auto layout, and you can also lock this as well. If you lock this, your image wouldn't move, so you can have a better retracing. So this way you would create your button this way. But what you notice is you really don't want to kind of resize your elements that way. You have to let auto layout fill these by itself, because as soon as you resize them like that, they would get into the fixed mode. So you really don't want that. What we really want is to make sure we get the text size as close as possible. And then once we get the text size as close as possible, here we have 12. So we just need to increase it to 16 to kind of match it as close as possible. And then we need to match kind of, the padding. So here we have on the right hand side our auto layout. So we could basically make the padding 0 and bring the deposit here in the middle and then just kind of eyeball the padding as we increase it. So here we would just eyeball it, we increase it, and I think we are roughly in a good range, so we can just give it 14. And now since we have our button created, all we need to do is use the eyedropper tool to give it a background and make this white with F and make this round corner by clicking and making all of this round corner. So now we have our deposit button created, but you notice also there is a bit of a bold font, so we can make this bold. We can repeat the same thing here, so we have our second button. So we would just drag this here, update the text, click eyedropper tool with eye, and then click eyedrop tool again to grab the primary color. And now we have our two buttons recreated. So now again, since we have two buttons recreated, if we go back to our auto layout, you see we have our container. And again, that is the key element to make these buttons expand the full width. So here we would click our two buttons, we would wrap them, maybe call them actions. And now if we take a look at the layer on the left hand side, we have the actions auto layout, which is the parent one, and then we have the two button auto layout inside of them. So now if we drag the actions, you see it is not growing. The only way for us to fix it is to select the two buttons and make both of them fill container. And this is exactly why we use auto layout, is to basically make them fill the available container. So we have our bottom element basically recreated. So what we need to do is to recreate these. So I would just basically copy the same text, paste it here. Now I would just type deposited fonts and give it the same color. So I would use eyedropper tool, give it the same color, and then just type it. So we have the first one added, and now we have to just give it the date. So we have the date added, so we would just use the eyedropper tool to make it basically the same color. So we have both of these added, and if we go back to our auto layout on the left hand side, we see that we need to wrap these two into an auto layout. So let's just go ahead and do that. We have two of our text, we would wrap it to auto layout. We can rename this to left. And now we need to repeat the same for the right side. So we would just duplicate that on the right side. And since this is auto layout, we can align it to the top right. But what you notice is they're not aligned to the top right. So you can click on both of them and make them into hug. And again, that is the auto layout in a nutshell, is if they fill the entire container, they're not going to be aligned to the right. So we turn them into a hug. And now we would just replace the text here. And what you notice is the text here is not bold. So we can update the font size. So the $5 here, again, and this, I think it's a Singaporean currency, is green, and this one is just +5. So let's just update that. Also, let's update the date, which is not bold. So here we will go ahead and update that to regular, update this one to regular as well, update the text. And now since we updated the text, we use the eyedropper to grab the color, and we can have this renamed to right. So since we have this as hug, we can make the parent auto layout as hug too. So it actually only takes the available space. And now we would combine left and right. If we take a look at the layers panel, we have left and right. So we need to make another auto layout. So we can call this, and again, and as I mentioned, we have a container, left auto layout, right auto layout. And then if we take a look at that, we have a container, left auto layout, right auto layout. And now we have the image here. So what we can do is basically recreate that using the same principle as the button. So we would just copy the text, paste it here, and then just put like the characters here. And then you can hover over it to see what size of the text you can use. So let's just go ahead with 12. I think 12 should be good. We can Shift+A to create an auto layout. You see our auto layout is actually taking the space, but with the padding. In this example, when you have circle elements like that, you don't want any padding. So you would just basically make all of them 0. And then once you make all of them 0, you would just grab it here and then use fixed width for both width and height. So in this example, it's 32. So we can go ahead with 32 and 32 for width and height, and we would center align our elements. And then we have this as white, and then we can press I to grab the color. And then finally, we would clip it and make the radius basically maxed out. So you have our icon created. Now we need to bring the icon here, and then once we bring it here As you can see, we have our left auto layout. So if we collapse everything, you can always collapse your layers using this icon. So we have the right, we have the left, we have the container, we have the icon. Now we need to wrap another auto layout and then call this transaction. So basically this is one transaction. And there we go. We have our transaction created. So we can bring our transaction here to the right side. And as you can see, our transactions have a parent auto layout. So we could just basically duplicate that, Shift+A to make that transactions. Basically, this is all the transactions that is happening. And then you can use Figma AI to basically duplicate that. And you have your transactions basically auto-generated using replace content. And then here you can see we can use Figma AI to replace these with different amounts and different dates. And then as you can see, everything is replaced. What you notice is there is a bit of an issue here. So this text is actually being wrapped. In order for us to fix that, we need to go to the auto layout, which is this left container, and make it fill the available space. Because we didn't really create a component, I mean, you should create a component, but this is purely auto layout. So I'm just going to do a bulk by selecting all of them and holding Command and making sure I have all of them as fill, and then hold Shift and return to select all the other parent elements and make them fill. And as you can see, I make all of them as bulk, and now we fix the spacing issue. And then again, we can go Shift and return, and then again under Shift and return to make all of these center align. And then we have finally our transaction. If we bring these to the right hand side, we can kind of eyeball the spacing. So the spacing is like this. So we can remove one of the elements and then have it as 4. Here we have our transactions created. And as you can see, we have the title, which has another auto layout. So we can just copy that, bring it here to kind of guess the font size. In this example is 16. Let's just go ahead with 18. So I have my title written. So I'll just bring it here, and I have my transaction container wrapped around this one. And then I can just rename this to general container, and then have kind of eyeball the spacing. You can just make the spacing like basically 24. I think 24 should be good. And now since we have this auto layout container created, now we need to move to the top one. These are also text. So we would just paste the text and then increase the font. And then once we do that, we would wrap it in an auto layout. So we have our left container created, which is my balance and shows the total balance, which we wrapped in a left container auto layout. And now we have to recreate this. I usually grab my icons from whatever library that is available. I always start, for example, with material symbol, and then I would search for chevron. Here I have the chevron, so I would just click. So I have the chevron added. So we can make the chevron a little bit smaller using the scale tool. So you could always click this one and go to scale, or simply click K. And then by doing that, you can basically resize this to 20 pixels. And then once you're done with this, here you see it is wrapped in a group, so we can just ungroup everything. And once we deleted the bounding box, we would again Shift+A to create an auto layout. This is exactly the same principle as this one. So what we can do is, if we want to copy all the properties, we could just Command / to do copy properties. And then once we do that, we would paste it here. So paste properties, and then we would basically get the same results except the color. Now we need to just update the colors. Here using the eye, we can update the colors, and then finally update the width and height, which is 32 by 32. If we eyeball it, we see it's a bit smaller, so we can just again use the scale tool and maybe go with 40, and then click here and again use the scale tool to go with 16. So we have our icon also created on the right hand side, and now what we need to do is wrap the icon with the left. So here we have left and icon, we wrap it with another auto layout, and here you see they are center aligned. So what we can do is align them to the bottom, and by aligning them to the bottom, now we have our basically my balance created. And what you notice is there is a bit of a spacing here. So if I bring this here, we have a bit of a padding and a border. So we can go to the padding and kind of gave it like 24 pixels of padding, and that would kind of roughly brings it here. And by doing that, now we can give it a border bottom. Now, since we gave it a border bottom, we can again use the eyedropper to kind of get the color of the border. So now if I bring this here, we have our border bottom created from the left hand side. So we can call this my balance. So I would repeat the same thing. I would grab an icon from any plugin from Figma and also update the text and wrap another auto layout here. So for this icon, I searched arrow. So I would repeat the same thing. I would ungroup it, delete it, and then since this is on the left side with this one, there's nothing else, I would just wrap one auto layout around it. And we can call this navigation. What you notice is this one, even though we recreated it, this is not the proper way to recreate this. If you want to center align this one, you need to make sure this is hug and this is fill with center align. So in order for us to do that, we need to first wrap an auto layout. If we don't do that, you see if we resize this, it is actually being resized using here. So we need to wrap another auto layout here, making sure that this is hug and hug. And then we click our header text, make this fill the entire space, and then center align it this way. So this way, no matter what we do, it's always going to be center aligned. So now we can bring our navigation here as well. And then finally, we have our icons here. This is very straightforward. You would just have your icons all wrapped in an auto layout and basically have one auto layout container. So I'll just repeat the same and search for these icons. If I can't find them, I'll just find something as close as possible. So as you can see, I added my icons. They don't look as similar to this, but I try to find as close as possible. We really want to care about the auto layout in this tutorial. So what I need to do is to make sure I get the correct sizing. So if I go ahead here, we have 24. So I assume the sizing for this one is 32. So let's just go ahead and double check. I think 40 might be the better size. So I know that 40 is roughly the correct size. So I have to make sure all of these icons are 40 and center aligned, even though they don't have any visible background. So we have to make sure they're all 40 pixels by 40 pixels. And then by doing that, we also have to make sure that this icon, which is highlighted, is the active one by highlighting it this way, rounding the corner, and then we have our navigation created. So we would wrap another auto layout in all of them. So here we can call this bottom navigation. And then we have our bottom navigation almost recreated. So we would basically bring the bottom navigation here, and now we can finally wrap another auto layout in all of them. However, if you do wrap another auto layout, what you notice is that these are sticky at the bottom, and also these one are sticky kind of at the top, and maybe this would be the scrollable portion of your element. So that's why we need to create another auto layout for our top nav. We can call this maybe header, and then we can wrap another auto layout for our actions and bottom navigation. And we can call this the footer. And this is basically our main container. And by doing that, now we can simply wrap one big parent auto layout, which is the final one, and then give it a white background color. So that would be our mobile app. And then we would just give it the white background color. So now we can drag our mobile app here and make sure that we get almost the correct width and height. And then if we try to eyeball it, we can make the background a little bit transparent. So this way, once we bring it here, we can kind of eyeball the spacing. So the middle container, which is the transaction, need to fill the available space. And we have to also click on the mobile app and make the gap basically 0. We don't want any gap. And as I mentioned, the footer, we need the footer to push at the bottom. So instead of the height being hug, we need to make the hug basically into fill and make the width into fill as well. You see here, it actually wraps the entire container, and then we would align it to the bottom. And then here we can click on the navigation, making sure instead of hug, we can make it fill, and then we center align it. You see, by having auto layout, we can have the flexibility that we want. And then finally for this one, we would just need to give it a bit of a gap, like let's say 24, and a lot of padding top. So by giving it a padding top of 78, that should roughly get us here. And then finally we have our transactions, so we can just basically give also like 48 pixels of padding top to our transactions, and then we have our app created. And then finally we can click on our mobile app. Since we have auto layout created for everything, we can just add a padding on all of these, and then by adding the padding, you see everything gets added and moved to the middle. And now we can simply make that back to the white. And this is how we recreated everything from scratch using basically auto layout purely.